Good morning, Jai Gurudev. We will continue with Chapter 9, the living organisms, characteristics and habitats. Now let's discuss about the adaptation and animals living in aquatic habitats. Most of the fish have streamlined body that we have already learned, but there are many aquatic animals other than fish, and all of them do not have streamlined body. For example, squids and octopus, they don't have streamlined body, but they usually stay in deep oceans near the seabeds, and they don't swim too much, so they don't have streamlined body. But when they swim, they change their body shape to streamline. They have gills which help them to breathe in water. Some animals such as dolphins and whales do not have gills to breathe. Rather, they breathe through nostrils or blowholes, which are located on the upper part of their head. So, while breathing, they swim up near the surface of water, and also they can stay inside the water for a long time without breathing. So, this is also a kind of adaptation because we cannot remain inside water for long without breathing. Ponds and lakes are also a type of aquatic habitat. And if you observe the roots of plants growing there and the stems of the plants growing there, you will find that they are very much different from those of terrestrial plants. In aquatic plants, roots are much reduced in size, and their main function is just to hold the plant in the place. Otherwise, the plant will flow along with. The stem of these plants are long, hollow and light, which helps the plants to float. The stem grows up to the surface of water, and the leaves and flowers, they float on the surface of water. Leaves are covered with some waxy substance which protects them from getting decayed. Some of the aquatic plants, they remain submerged inside the water, and all parts of such plants, they are inside the water. Some of these plants, they have very thin ribbon-like leaves so that the water which is flowing does not destroy those leaves. The leaves are often highly divided through which the water can easily flow, even without damaging the leaves. Talking about the animals living in ponds, the most common are frogs. Frogs can stay both inside the water as well as they can move on land, so they are adapted in both the living habitats. They have strong back legs which help them to jump or leap and catch the prey when on land, and similarly they have webbed feet which helps them to swim in water. There is a wide variety of animals and each one is adapted differently to their habitat. We have discussed just a few of them. Now coming to the characteristics of organisms. The whole world is divided into living and non-living things. Here is a small poem showing the table and a chair talking to each other, but we know that they don't talk to each other, nor can they walk. So there are certain characteristic features for all living things, which is found in all the living things. The first one is all living things need food. All organisms need food for their growth and development of their body. They also need energy for various life processes. The second characteristic feature is all the living organisms, they show growth. All living organisms grow. You must have seen puppies growing into dogs, calves growing into cows, and also plants growing from the seeds or increasing in size. Some of the plants, they grow as big as banyan tree from a seed itself. Even you are growing. So all living things, they grow. You might have seen clouds also growing big in size, but they are not living things because they don't show all the characteristics of a living thing. The next characteristic feature is all the living organisms, they respire. All organisms breathe to survive. All organisms breathe in air to absorb oxygen which is present in air, and all of them they breathe out carbon dioxide. This process is called respiration. Different animals they have different organs to respire. Some have gills like fish, some breathe through their skin like frogs and earthworms, and some big animals they have lungs like cow, goat, human beings. Plants also respire and they also breathe in oxygen which is present in air through small openings in their leaves which is called stomata, and they also breathe out carbon dioxide. So all living things respire. The next characteristic feature for all the living organisms is that they respond to stimuli. If you touch a hot object, you suddenly take your hands off. If a pointed object pricks you, you feel the pain. If something is thrown at you, or if someone throws bright light on your face, you immediately close your eyes. This all is responding to stimuli. Animals also respond to stimuli. If you hurt them, they get hurt, they feel pain, they'll react to them. If you give them something to eat, they'll respond immediately. Similarly, if you accidentally step on any animal's tail, you must have seen their reaction. So all this is reacting to stimuli. Plants also respond to stimuli. There are some plants which are very much sensitive and they respond to the touch, like touch me not plant or Venus flytrap. As soon as you touch them, they'll close. Some plants you must have seen, they flower only at night time. Some plants they will flower only when there is a bright sun. And many flowers they close at the sunset time. So this all is responding to stimuli. Also you will see that plants they bend and grow towards the sunlight. This is again showing stimuli. The next characteristic feature is excretion. We know that living organisms they need food. But not all the food that is eaten is completely used by the body. Only a part of that food is utilized by the body and the remaining part has to be removed from the body as waste. Also, our body produces some waste in the other life processes, like when we breathe in oxygen. But after the life processes, carbon dioxide is thrown out of the body. That is also excretion. The process of getting rid of these wastes which are produced inside our body is known as excretion. All animals excrete, but do plants excrete? Yes, plants also excrete. You must have seen gums or raisins or rubber which is actually excreted by the plant. It is its waste. Also, they give out oxygen and carbon dioxide and also water. But some plants find it possible to store the waste products within their parts and it does not harm the plant. The next important characteristic feature of all living organisms is reproduction. All living organisms produce their own kind, whether they are plants or animals. The mode of reproduction may be different in different organisms. For example, some animals they produce young ones and some they lay eggs and young ones come out of the eggs. Plants also reproduce the way animals do, but mode of reproduction in plants is different from that of animals. Many plants reproduce through seeds. Seeds they grow up into new plants. Plants produce seeds and those seeds only can germinate and grow into new plant. But some of the plants also reproduce through other paths. For example, you must have seen the eye of a potato, which is called the bud, and a new plant grows out of this bud. Similarly, some plants like rose and hibiscus, they reproduce through their cuttings. Next property or characteristic which the living organisms show is movement. But have you seen plants moving? No. Plants generally are fixed in the soil and so they cannot move from one place to another. However, various substances like water, mineral, and the food which is prepared by the plant moves from one part of the plant to another. We have also seen some of the non-living things moving. You must have seen a bus or car or train moving. Kite, you must have seen it flying. Fan moves, clouds move, but are they living? No, they are non-living things. And they are non-living, so they cannot move on their own. Someone has to move them. There is such a variety of living organisms, but all of them, they show some common characteristics, which we just now discussed. And there is one more common characteristic of all living things, and that is they die. So, all living things, they show the following characteristics, like they all need food, they respire, they respond to stimuli, they reproduce, they show movement, they grow, and they die. We also find that some non-living things like car, bicycle, clock, they move. Water also moves in river, moon moves up in the sky, clouds they grow big in size. But these objects which are non-living, they do not show all the characteristics of living things at a time. Living things have all the characteristics that we discussed, while non-living things may show one or two characteristics only. But is it true that all living things will show all the characteristics? No. Sometimes even living things do not show all the characteristics. Let's see one example. Consider any seed, say moong seed. Is it living? It can stay in the shop for months and it will not show any growth or any other characteristic of life. But when we bring the same seed home, put it in water, plant it in soil, it will turn into a whole new plant. Did the seed need food? Did it excrete? Did it grow or reproduce when it was in the shop for so many months? No. That time it was not showing any of the characteristics of living things, but it was still living. How do we know that? Put your hand deep inside the sack of wheat or any other grain or in the lentils. You will feel warm inside. Here is some heat produced. From where is this heat produced? It is produced because the seeds which are inside the sack, they are respiring. And this process gives out some heat, which means that respiration takes place in the seeds even when other life processes are not seen or are not active. So looking at all the diversity of living beings around us, we can just say that life, we cannot understand it, but it is still beautiful.